Welcome to episode 2. I am delighted today to have a guest with me, the lovely Tarba Gill. Good afternoon, Tarba.
Good morning or good afternoon. How
Oh,
are
yeah.
you?
Oh, yeah, you're in the morning, aren't you? Yes, good morning, Tarba. But good afternoon, wherever you are in the world when you're listening to this. Welcome. It's just so great to have you here because I've known Tarba for about a year through a coaching group that we're members of. And I didn't know half about Tarba until we decided to do this podcast. So, Tarba, there's so much about you and there's so many exciting things about you. Tell us a little bit about your background, please.
Oh gosh. Have you got a sofa, a comfortable one, and a few pillows? So my background is career-wise, I largely centre around broadcasting. I was with Sky for about 12 years. Prior to that, I ran a community TV station in Cambridge, and also I've worked on about 13 different radio stations, including Kiss FM in Spain. And my background regarding how I grew up is I lived in Africa for about 10 years before I came over to the UK. And I lived in all sorts of areas in Africa. And I am currently a mum to 2 children, and I'm hiding in Cambridgeshire.
Fantastic. So we'll go back to your childhood a little bit later. But I think to start, we need to talk about success after 40, don't we? Because leaving a corporate job, a successful, secure corporate job, when you're over 40 is a brave thing to do. I was 50 when I did it, and I have never had any regrets. But you were over 40. So Tarba, tell us what led to the decision of you leaving that corporate role.
Oh, there were a few things. I think there was one moment where at school I was doing night shifts, and I remember it being very, very late at night. And I remember looking through a load of screens and seeing one of my colleagues who was in his early 70s walking along the corridor. And I thought, oh my goodness me. And I also found out that some of them couldn't retire because they didn't have enough in their pension pot.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, blimey. And at the time, still living in Cambridgeshire, still doing the commutes back and forwards, feeling so tired, children upset they weren't seeing their mum for 4 or 5 days. And I was thinking, I've brought you guys into the world and I'm missing out on half of your things, things that are going on with the kids. It was to a point where I felt like I led 2 separate lives. And I felt there's got to be more. I've been in the same position for about 12 years. I wasn't progressing. I wasn't learning any new skills apart from, obviously, I would take myself off and learn about websites. And I was constantly learning, but I was still not, things weren't changing. I felt like I was stuck. And there were a couple of other things that kind of helped push me into a decision of actually leaving. And one of those was my boss, one of my old bosses, who said, I'm launching this app. I really would love you on board it, and I know that you want an adventure, and I can certainly offer this opportunity if you're interested. So I'm lucky things lined up, but it got to a point where I'm seeing things at work and I'm thinking, do I want to be in that position when I hit 70? There was just so many different elements to it, I think.
Yeah. And very similar for me, really, I guess, because I was in a corporate role at the Foreign Office. I went back after both pregnancies, 2 children, commuting into London, juggling childcare. And it gets to the stage where you do feel a bit of a fraud, don't you? You're not doing as well as you know you should be doing at work, but you're not being the best parent you could be. And you just suddenly, and I had a boss that wasn't particularly nice. So I made that decision that I was going to just get out of it. And again, never looked back. So we're the fortunate ones, but people who are listening should know it is possible. You need to be brave, and it may be you have to take your time and put some things in place before you do it, but it's definitely possible for everyone. Now, Tarba, since you've left the corporate life, You've done some pretty amazing things, haven't you?
Yeah, I have actually. I just, if you told me half the things that I'd been up to while I was at Sky, I'm looking into your crystal ball, Tarba, this is what's going to happen. I'd go, nah, that's not going to happen. I worked on the app, as I mentioned, with a former, I call him a friend as well as a former boss. I've known him for a very, very long time. One of the founding fathers of the internet. So wow. I'm absolutely blessed, to have him as in my circle. And ping ping.
Yes.
I don't know
where that's coming from. No.
So where was I? Oh yes. So I worked on the app, and I then ended up doing a load of different events as well, as a consequence of being called in to rescue a theatre, which was the Broadway Theatre in Peterborough, which is one of the largest venues in East Anglia. And there'd been all sorts of things going on there, and they said, we need help. I was one of three of the team. And that involved me climbing into the roof and looking at the rigging.
Wow.
learning about compliance. I think I went to bed with some theatre Bible, so I knew what I was doing. I don't know. Yes, it's just this amazing opportunity happened, and I just focused on that. I learned how to get the gas reinstated, all sorts of things. And the wonderful news is that we saved the theatre, and it's got new management and fully operational. Really, really pleased with that. What else has been going on? There's so many. The latest thing, which I can share now officially, is I am part of a very, very small group who are going to be putting on the first award ceremony for the stunt industry in the UK. It's the very, very first one, and that's scheduled April 2023.
It's amazing. It's the first one.
Yep. It's shocking, to be quite honest.
It is shocking.
What is going on?
Yeah.
I can tell you a bit more about it if you
yes,
if
please.
You want at some point. So I was approached and asked if I would be interested in helping pull this together. And my skill base is very mixed. I'm technical, but I'm also creative, which is also a bit of a nightmare because my brain goes one way and then goes the other way. And it was a shock. And I wasn't really aware that there wasn't any sort of categories within the BAFTAs or the Oscars for the stunt industry. And it was I only became aware when my children's sensei, who's a martial arts expert, was saying, and he does performances, and he was saying, this is just so unfair. Why are we not getting any recognition? We risk our lives. And I'd see these posts on his Facebook, and I said, well, why don't you say something? Why don't you join together and make it happen? And it's like, no, we've tried all that. So it was almost like, so as I'm bumping about going, you're going to do this, at the same, this from nowhere, I'm then find myself getting involved in putting together the foundations for the Stunt Awards in the UK. So it is for the UK citizens that are based in this country, and there's only one other sort of ceremony which is in the USA, and the idea is that by opening another award ceremony in the UK, that will just make that spotlight just a bit brighter, and it may well get the BAFTAs and the Oscars and any well-known award ceremonies to actually sit up and go, hang on a minute, we need to include this. We're looking a bit silly here now. So I'm very excited about it. I totally believe in it. And as I'm learning more about the industry, I'm absolutely feeling the passion inside. So it's coming from the heart. It's not just a project, paying some of the bills. It's more than that. And I really do feel like we're making history with this.
That's
so
amazing.
I'm very excited.
I remember, I can't remember what course I was on. I think it might have been property development or something. And one of the speakers at our evening do was the lady who set up is it the Mobies?
Oh, yes.
The Black Music Awards.
Yeah.
And similar, there was nothing specifically for that category. And she was very inspiring. So watch this space, Tarba Gill. Remember that name, everyone. I think we could be hearing a lot more from this lady. The thing that intrigues me the most about things that you're doing now is both auditioning on stage and writing a screenplay. Tell us more about those.
Oh, I kept some of that quiet. So the situation I found myself after I left Sky was that I think there was kind of a question mark about my confidence. Like, even though I don't, people go, "Oh, you did radio and you did television and you used to do this and you used to do that." That's used to, and there's a certain time, as time goes on, that you question your confidence, and especially when you bring children into the world, you're kind of not the same person you were prior. So there was a lot of doubt, and this is the bit what really tested me, because the old Tarba wouldn't have minded so much. The new Tarba was a bit terrified at the prospect that she was going to end up on stage. She was auditioning for the chance to go back on the radio, and she thought she was just going to do it in front of 4 people. So she didn't realise that the theatre was going to have about 300 people watching her on stage in front of judges, as well as being recorded.
Oh, wow.
So when I found out, and it wasn't in my headspace was like, what on earth is going on here? I can't do that. And I had a real battle. I really did. I literally was thinking, if I don't do this now, it's never going to happen. This is an opportunity. I'm getting on that stage. I'm going to make it happen again. I'm going to live my best life. And I read this book, something like Face Your Fears. Oh, I can't. I'm probably got it in my drawer somewhere.
Not feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
that's the book.
Yeah,
that is the book.
It.
And that book, oh my goodness, I was in that car park. I was charging up and down doing my rehearsal. I looked like a mad woman, and I thought, I'm getting on that stage. I had a woman who was very confident next to me, and she's, it's fine. So hers all, I think she was a bit overconfident, so it went a bit pear-shaped for her. I got on the stage and I just went, bah, 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 bah. And so that was, I felt, when I came off that, I was like, oh my God, I did that. I better please come back. So yeah, I didn't get selected. However, the best lesson that I got from that was that, it's, you put your mind to it and believe in yourself and do everything you can to prepare and just do it.
Yeah. And that is so true, isn't it? If it's meant to be, it's up to me, Henry Ford said, and it's so true. And that book, we should just highlight that again for anyone listening, but it's Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, a really old, renowned personal development book. I think it's Susan Jeffers. I'm sure it's Susan right. Jeffers who wrote it. But yeah, an amazing book. And well done for getting on that stage. But tell us about the script.
Oh, okay. A long time ago. So this is based on some experience. And I have to be really careful because I found out they're still about. I'm basing it on something that happened to me probably about 20 years ago, actually. It's very fascinating. And it's based on a kid who's in sixth form, who launched various businesses, and it went a bit pear-shaped to the point where various people like me were being scammed.
Oh.
And I think when you're going through that, and you have to remind yourself, now that I'm older, I reflect on it and I thought, oh my goodness, what was his story? What was going on behind the scenes?
Yeah.
And that really, and then when you become a parent, you have to, I was thinking, I actually, in a weird way, I admire him. And I really hope that he's okay. And I really hope he's a successful entrepreneur and learned a few lessons. And I'm writing it in the style of, my partner's just gone, you can't do that. I'm writing it in the style of a film, which is Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, yes.
So that sort of style. I'm just having a lot of fun. I'm about 50 pages into the actual script. It's been a lot of stop-start, having a look to see if I'm structuring right, the dialogue and everything else. But yeah, it's I'm not going to mention who the person is. I know that they're still very much there. I found them on LinkedIn. I'm pleased to see that he's he seems to have found his path. So, but yeah, I won't be mentioning his name, but I'm very excited. I'm also sort of presenting it with two perspectives, my perspective and the other ones that were involved in the scam. I mean, it did actually get national press interest. It did actually get into the papers. And there was a couple of forums where lots of people congregated and were sharing experiences. And we had, I mean, there were so many hits on that. People were watching, and every so often, I mean, I think one of the forums is still open, as in like you can go and have a look at it. And every so often you'll see somebody go, I wonder what happened with so-and-so. So, and I'm thinking, I know. And somebody right at the end's gone, I hope somebody writes a play or a film about this.
Well, I can't wait to watch it.
Thank you.
I shall be there queuing in the cinema. I hope I'll be invited to the premiere, actually.
So. Oh, absolutely.
I'll wear a nice frock. Oh, Tarba, you just done some amazingly exciting things, which I think is brilliant. Now, we touched a little bit on your childhood, maybe, and for lots of us, things happened in our childhood which could have shaped the adult that we've become if we let it. I'll always remember a case I read about twins being born in America, and they were born to parents that were drug addicts. So they were not, I don't think they were physically abused, but they were definitely emotionally and mentally abused. And when they grew up, one was a down and out on the street, and the other one was a successful millionaire. And when they were interviewed about how they'd got to where they were, they both put it down to their childhood, which shows, they both were raised in exactly the same household, that it really is down to you at the end of the day. So do you want to tell us a little, as much or as little as you want to about your childhood?
Yeah, sure. I think it's really important also that if I believe in share, I mean, I don't talk too often about it, but I do feel that by sharing, you're also sort of saying to anyone that might be going through this, or especially younger people, that, if I can get through all the madness and still be here, so can you. So my just a rough outline. My parents, hippies. My mum, unfortunately, was an alcoholic, very violent alcoholic. And my parents split up when I was about 10, to the point where my father ended up with custody of 4 of us. And yeah, it was a very, very bumpy road. There's some horrible things, but there's some beautiful things as well. I mean, I certainly had adventures, and I also, as an adult and a parent, what I have done, and I have had people go, oh my goodness, you must have really hated your mum. And I went, no, I don't hate her. Mm-hmm. And I've understood her a lot more as I've got older. And I've looked at photographs of her as a young teenager and with her family, and in none of them she's smiling. And some said that my father kind of helped her into the journey of alcohol by taking her to lots of parties, and I said no, it wasn't she had no self-esteem, and alcohol unfortunately gave her that confidence. So to understand where she came from, it's kind of better equipped me and how I want to bring up my family. My kids have, we have a very good relationship. I tell them I love them every day. I've never smacked them. There's no violence in our house. I have a very odd relationship with alcohol. I drink very occasionally. I make it a rule that I don't have a drink on my own in the house. I stopped watching EastEnders because every time they seem to have a problem, the bottle came out, and thinking, that's not good. That's not good.
No. It's not a good message to put out either, is it?
Yes,
really?
Absolutely.
Yeah, couldn't they have gone to the gym or gone for a walk or meditated or something?
Absolutely. So that's why I stopped watching EastEnders. I was thinking, this isn't right. You should be, go and pound something. Go and, as you said, go for a walk. Go and just do something, but don't open your bottle and what's that saying to the rest of us? And I think some people have said, well, that's really, really bad. And I'm thinking, well, I will not let history define my life. And I have to say that with all my previous partners and boyfriends and things, I've had to be, how to put this? I've might come across slightly insensitive, but I've had to say, look, if I find you've got a drinking problem, I don't think I could go through that again. No. I'm really sorry. I will help you, but I will not be in a relationship with you. Yeah. So, as a consequence of going through that myself, I could have just rolled over and accepted, but I absolutely, no, that wasn't going to happen. And as my life, and I decide what I want to do with it, and I won't let history mess me about.
No, I think that's very wise, very wise. And I know you, like me, have discovered the world of personal development, which when did you first get into that?
I think this is going to sound a bit odd, but I think my dad might have just sort of put some of those seeds in to begin with, and I didn't even realise. And I do remember him telling me about a story where with this kid that was really poor, and no matter what happened, he's just always smiling. And then they tested him out by, his bedroom was just full of horse manure, and the parent opened the door and the kid's bouncing up and down, and they go, why are you so happy? Because that means there's a horse somewhere. Oh. I remember my dad telling me things like that. He was always trying to find some magic, to the point where I never even knew my father very well. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. Yeah. So I think that was the start of the self-development. And I think that also opened a few more doors for adventure. So I wasn't so scared. I wasn't so concerned about staying safe until I got my corporate job. And I think then during I think it was just before the pandemic. That's what was going on. So I left Sky, and then I'd done all my theatre stuff and everything else. And then, I don't know, YouTube, it's like a rabbit hole. And I just kept finding myself going in different directions. And then, I don't know how, but me and Susan connected during the lockdown. I was saying, yeah, I'm reading this and I'm reading that, and oh, have you heard of Bob? And she said, and she laughed. It's like, yeah, there's this guy and a blah blah blah, and she's just like listening to me. And I remember trotting around the garden to get my steps up while I was on the phone to Susan. We were on the phone for about an hour, and I was just like, oh, my stuff is amazing, and I feel like I'm ready to take over the world. And then she goes, oh, funny enough. And then she starts telling me what she's been up to.
So if anyone wants to know who Susan is, listen to last week's episode, because Susan was interviewed on there and spoke to us about being a Bob Proctor coach. But isn't it amazing? And isn't it, I remember when I first got into it, it must be about 10 years ago now. And I had two youngest children. And I had given up my corporate job, and I guess life was a little bit less stressful. I wasn't commuting into London and juggling childcare. And after getting into meditation and one thing and another, my daughter turned to me one day and she said, Mummy, I don't think you love me anymore. And I said, what? And she said, well, you don't get cross with me anymore. And it makes your heart sort of weep, really, doesn't it? That you've obviously got cross with her before.
Yeah.
But B, how much just getting into spiritual practices and working on yourself can really help you to just be different and just live a different sort of life.
Do you know what? I haven't shared this yet. My son yesterday. So my son is 10 years old, and this will give you an insight. So I've only just started sharing the stuff with my kids. My oldest daughter is a little bit frowny, not so sure, whereas my son, I went and picked him up. He's been he thought he'd have a go at trying to get into squad for running, and this is from a kid that was you know, every so often would tell me, oh, you know, everyone thinks I'm really slow. Anyway, I went to pick him up yesterday, totally forgot that they were selecting the people to be part of this squad. And he went, I didn't get in. I went, oh, okay. And he went, I did really.
Oh.
he said, thank you, mummy. I went, what for? For doing those affirmations in the car. I think that really helped.
Oh. And they would have. They absolutely would have. Tarba, we're running out of time, and it's just whizzed by because it's been so lovely talking to you. If there was one piece of advice that you could give to our listeners today about ways that they could live their best life, live a more beautiful life, what advice would you give them?
Wow, that's a good one. Own it. Just own it.
Yeah.
It's your life. Own it.
Yeah. Take responsibility for everything in it. Don't blame anyone else. Don't be a victim. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Tarba, thank you. I'm sure we'll get you on again in the future because you've got so much wisdom to share with us all. And I'm just so thrilled to have had you on episode 2 today.
Thank you so much, Jill. I've really enjoyed today.